What's up, guys? Welcome to Atlanta United Fan TV. That was...
What's up, guys? I'm Tanner, this is Devin, and that match was yikes. Before we get started, become a member of the Notification Squad on YouTube by hitting the bell next to the subscribe button. Or if you're on Facebook, hit that like button and follow us.
Well, first you had this happen in the 7th minute.
Then, whatever this was, came in the 34th.
Then you had a little bit of hope in the 41st with Julian Gressel scoring what amounted to an own goal that they gave it to him.
Then, unfortunately, this finally happened in the 50th. Really, after that, not much else happened. On the whole, that was a whole lot of just CONCACAF.
It was rough. It was a very, very tough match to watch. The pitch, the ref, the disjointed feel. It was just from front to back, it didn't look like we were ready to play. We were going up against a team, like we had mentioned in the match preview, that was 9 matches into their season, and they looked every bit of it. We had not played a competitive match to that point outside of some preseason friendlies, and it showed. It certainly showed.
It looked like they knew basically every bounce on that pitch that made no sense, because it was basically just not even 4G thrown on top of some concrete.
Wow.
And that was like, you have good turf, what you have at the Pins, and then you have what
Carpet.
you can afford,
Yeah.
which is not much, and then that's a bit of a home field advantage. But still, we can't blame the pitch. We can't blame we can kind of blame the ref. He was really bad. Apparently, he reffed a World Cup final or something like that.
Yeah, definitely involved in a World Cup setup, but you look at some of those fouls, and you look at the amount of those
But
fouls.
it was both ways, to be fair. Like, LGP just absolutely shoulder barged a guy. Got none of the ball, no call. And it's just like, what are you looking at, ref? I mean, both ways just absolutely terrible. There's no VAR, so Joseph probably should have had a penalty in the first half.
There was a Stonewall penalty.
Yeah, second half, but it doesn't get called. And it's just like,
It's one of those things that you sit back and you say, in CONCACAF, you never want to put yourself in a position to let the refs play a role in the game, but in this game, it seemed like it was going to be inevitable.
yeah.
It's just...
Well, I mean, when you play this bad, you allow the refs to factor into the game. And at the same, we have these excuses, but at the same time, this team played terrible. And I mean, we joked a lot about Toronto looking terrible in their game a few days back, but their roster isn't nearly as talented as Atlanta United's is. They've had a really tumultuous offseason. On the whole, ours has been pretty smooth, even with the new staff coming in. But this team, they had never played together. I mean, this was just awful at the back. I don't even know. Every time they went forward, it felt like they were going to score.
It did, and their counters looked deadly. Our defense looked disjointed. Playing Michael
is a light term.
Playing Michael Parkhurst instead of in the center and putting him on the right was.
He has no pace. We saw what happened with Lorenowitz last year when he was put in those situations and left in loads of space. He got cooked. Parkhurst is slower than Lorenowitz.
And some of the decisions that were made by the coaching staff, I mean, we're crying out at halftime for substitutions, and you might be able to echo some of those sentiments back. Like, playing 17-year-old George Bello tonight was a mistake. It was absolutely a mistake. You have an opportunity to play a player in Breck Shea, who's got not only Premier League experience, but international experience. He's played in CONCACAF matches. He knows what the rough and tumble environment is going to be. George Bello got outclassed, outgunned, outmanned, outrun, and outpositioned, and it cost us. And you saw it in about the 85th minute when LGP absolutely tore into him. He was screaming at his face.
Although,
you could see the frustration.
A bit rich from LGP, because he had an absolute shocker as well. I mean, that I think for me is just how disjointed they looked at the back, because Michael Parkhurst on the right doesn't make a lot of sense to me. He's incredible in the middle because he's been in this game for a very long time. He can read the game as good as anyone else, which is how he makes up for his lack of pace. But the issue here is when you expose him to that, you also lose that discipline at the back that allows LGP to go off and do the stuff that honestly he does all the time.
Right.
But he's able to get away with that because he has that partnership with LGP where he knows he's going to be covered. With Miles Robinson back there, Miles Robinson was attacking the same ball he was and leaving loads of space.
There was no communication. We talked about that in the preview, about how I thought playing Miles in the center was more for cover for him because Guzan could communicate with him.
He didn't do any of that.
No communication. And I've seen online that a lot of people think Miles was the best defender on the pitch tonight. That's not saying much. I mean, honestly, Gressel was at fault for the set piece goal. Let his man get goal side of him. Was standing a yard on the outside of the post, which makes absolutely no sense. So bad defending there. LGP obviously at fault for the head back. Like,
I don't
what
even know what
doing?
that was.
Your goalkeeper is standing inside his 6-yard box, and you attempt to head a ball from 10 yards outside of the box back to him directly to their player. Guzan, I mean, think about it. If Guzan doesn't get scored on there, he might have been called for a penalty, but just because of the colliding with the player. That made a bad situation even worse, and it just happened so often. And
it was bad. It was
like
bad.
You said too, when he shoulder charges the player at the end out of frustration and doesn't get the call. If that's Jair Marufo or Mark Geiger, he might have been carded.
He probably would have been sent off, to be honest.
Exactly.
I mean,
and he had one of those moments last season.
I really don't want to talk too long on the ref because, yeah, he was bad, but I think more of the bones of this is that we were just absolutely awful tonight. I mean, on the second goal, what is the left side of our defense doing? There's no line being held, and you could see the warning signs early on where LGP dropped off and the rest of the line stayed. They couldn't hold a line to keep anyone offside to save their life, and I get that, yeah, it was really close apparently. You know, there wasn't a lot of replays or anything with the broadcast, but still.
We're giving you the best kind of analysis we can.
I mean, it's just like, it was still bad. It was still just completely awful. There was, again, no communication. And it
looked like a team that hadn't played together.
Yeah.
It looked like guys that had been off for 9 weeks, and it looked like there were some really key pieces missing. Like, I really, really need Ezequiel Barco to understand that you have to get rid of the ball.
He has to pass the ball.
You have to pass the ball. You don't need to beat players 5 and 6 times because ultimately they're going to get help and you're going to get clattered. And at that point in time, the ref's tired of seeing you on the ball and then on the ground. So you're not getting the calls that you probably should get in some instances because it is CONCACAF. But Barco, pass the ball, man. You've got players making runs into space that you're not feeding. And that you could see a frustrated Joseph Martinez. You could see PT towards the end when he was subbed off. He had been hit so much that, you wonder if the sub in the 75th minute for Tito Villalba, or with Tito Villalba for PT Martinez, was to keep him from getting hit again.
Quite possibly. I mean, but I think PT Martinez, we should touch on him for a second because it was his debut for Atlanta United. I think he actually had a decent contribution to the game. Whenever he was on the ball, I did get excited because you felt he could beat anyone. And quite a few times, he absolutely mugged the guys on the other team off. So his quality, you can see it. He knows how to do what Barco doesn't. He has that experience. Yes, he's an older player who's played a lot more and played in some big competitions. But Barco needs to be able to learn from him because he can use his tricks and flicks to create that space. But then he gets rid of the ball. Barco creates some space and then holds onto the ball, holds onto the ball, holds onto the ball. And yeah, sometimes guys aren't making runs, but sometimes you just have to let it go. You just have to move it as opposed to holding on to it. And
let's call it what it is, though, Tanner. And this is something that we need to completely understand. In a system where you just ran out Bello, Lorenowitz, Remedi, LGP, Parkhurst, Robinson, you're practically playing, 5, 6, at some point in time, 7 defensive players on the pitch, and you still gave up 3 goals? There was such a disconnect. Until Darlington Nagbe came on, there was absolutely no cohesion and connection between the back 5 and the front 3.
Yeah.
Joseph at points in time in the match looked frustrated. It's match 1. I mean, and I get that you're gonna have some chemistry issues with new players, but PT Martinez looked ready to make runs and looked ready to beat people and looked ready to steal souls, and there was no runners.
Absolutely.
There's times where I'm looking at Julian Gressel saying, "What are you doing?" And then just a perfect example in the 87th minute when George Bello gets a ball passed to him, doesn't make the trap, the ball goes out of bounds, they get a throw in, and it's almost 4-1.
He got away with the foul throw as well.
It's a bad decision, and it makes you harken back to last season with Houston, where we came out flat and we got absolutely housed by a team that was up for the match. Now, how you're not up for Champions League is beyond me, and maybe we as fans put too much value on it. Maybe we expected too much out of the team too early, but I think that we're better than the team that we played, and we played down to their level. The pitch played into it, the ref played into it, yes, but we didn't look like a team that knew what we were doing. We didn't look like a team that had practiced together. We didn't look like a team that had any cohesion. We looked like a team that the first time they punched us in the mouth, we were done.
Yeah, I mean, it's concerning because It's 2 years in a row that we've gotten off to an absolute just horrible start. We've lost actually our first game of the season, all 3 seasons, so last year it turned out okay. So guys, we are now going to get into our match ratings. They are not very good. Dev, start us off with the keeper, Brad Guzan.
All right, let's go with Brad. He gave up 3. He was at fault definitely for a couple of them, so not a great match. I'm going to go with a 4.
All right, so now we're going to get into that back line. We will start with Michael Parkhurst. On the right, it definitely was not his best night for the 5 stripes.
Not a great showing for the captain, absolutely. Another situation where no player really covered themselves in glory. We gave up 3 goals. He was at fault in bad positioning. Played out of position, so 4.
Now moving on to Miles Robinson. If he was the best defender, it could not have been much better than Michael Parkhurst.
5.
5. And then your favorite player who, if people remember correctly, you had a bit of a hate train for. I think you might be heading back in that direction after tonight. Leandro Gonzalez-Perez.
It's early. I'm gonna hold off with the fire, but again, no player covered in glory. And if Miles was the best with a 5, LGP is gonna get a 4.
Yikes. So we're going to go ahead and move on to Julian Gressel. At his familiar position out right wing back, it was definitely not a very good game from him and not really what we've become accustomed to in terms of his offensive production, aside from his goal, but again, it was really, really deflected.
At fault for the 3rd goal, bad positioning on a set piece. It happened again. Doesn't make the runs when Barco's looking to push him through. Doesn't make the run when PT's looking to push him through. Doesn't cover himself in glory. 4.
Oof, even with the goal, he still gets a 4. So now moving into midfield even more, you have Jeff Florinowicz. I thought he had some pretty decent moments at time. He kind of settled as the game went on, but I felt he could have probably been better suited playing in a back 3 on the right because he did it a few times last season.
It's one of those players where it's like, okay, I can't point out to a moment where Larry was terrible. I can't really point a moment where he did anything great. So in the spirit of that nature that you typically start with a 6, we didn't win. He plays a defensive midfield position. I'm gonna give him a 5.
5. Okay, what about Eric Hermeti? I thought he had some decent moments as well, but I think most of his yelling was done at the referee for no bookings being handed out to any of the opposition.
His emotions definitely played with his head. You could tell he was tired of getting chopped down. It's positioning. It comes down to, again, a defensive mid player. We gave up 3 goals. We looked like we were getting torn apart in the center. At that point in time, it looked like they were blitzkrieging down. If I could give halves, I'd give a 4.5, but because he wasn't directly at fault for the goals, I'm going to give him a 5.
All right, now I imagine this player is probably going to get your lowest rating of the match, and it was someone we were really excited to see, but both you and I were nervous to see him start, and I think he looked very much out of his depth in George Bello.
I don't want to do this. I really don't, because he's a homegrown product, but you're not ready. You're absolutely not ready for prime time. This was prime time, and you looked bad. So I'm going to give you a 2.
Oof, 2. And I think he's someone that does have a lot of promise, but maybe we have put a bit too much pressure and a bit too much praise too early on someone who hasn't played that much. We're going to go ahead and get into the front 3, and Pity Martinez, making his debut for Atlanta United in the Champions League, so I guess he still has his MLS debut to come. How did he fare, do you think, today?
At points in time, the most creative player on the pitch. Absolutely showed parts of the points where, he was the player why we spent all this money for him. But didn't get the goal, didn't really have too much of an impact in the second, and got subbed off. So pretty lackluster, 5.
Just kind of a case of just not a good night for him, bad pitch, the game wasn't really flowing. If he can get connected, he's going to be one of those guys, because you could absolutely see the talent he has.
You could see it.
And some of the skills he does. It's stuff that Barco wishes he could pull off.
So I'm going to rescind my 5. I believe it was a little bit too, I'm going to give him a 6. I think that
some of those turns he had were
his creativity, his runs, he pulled a Cruyff turn directly at the 18 where I wish he would have taken the shot.
You can see the confidence
and
he
their
has.
Goalkeeper saved him twice. Once on a low shot and once on a deflection that I believe hit the post. And so PT, I think, was probably our most creative player on the pitch.
All right, now to our big man number 7, the guy who scores the goals, but unfortunately did not get any tonight and missed a pretty glaring chance. Joseph Martinez.
That header, oh man, to go wide with that. And then also, I believe he had a Stonewall penalty tonight. I think the 2 players converged upon him.
I mean, he gets that. You know he's burying that penalty
Yeah.
as well, and that's a second away goal, which would have been massive for us taking it into that second leg.
It's really hard to, again, say, that you had a good match because you didn't. You had 2 glaring opportunities. You're a goal scorer.
But was it as much his fault or the fact that the team didn't really create any opportunities for him to, get
The header
anywhere?
was his fault. The header was absolutely his fault because there's nobody else that could have headed
And I
that
guess when
ball,
you
and he
get a new
headed it wide.
contract and you have the history you do, you're expected to take that chance and bury it.
I'm going to give him a 4.
Yikes. Finally, in the starting 11, we have Ezequiel Barco. I did not think he played very well, and he was someone that I really expected could do some big things for Atlanta United this season. But in this match, not very good.
Listen, Ezzy, listen. I want you to listen to me. Look in the camera and seriously take this to heart. You got to get your emotions in check, bro. You're gonna get chopped down. People are gonna hit you. You're a big money signing with a target on your back. Don't let it get to you. It's not gonna get you a yellow card to flop every time you get hit. It doesn't help. Plus, please, like we said, play the ball to your teammates. You're trying to do way too much. In this system where we can pass the ball, you're gonna have to do it. So tonight was not your night, but I think that you tried. So I'm not gonna do you like I did Bello, but I'm gonna give you a 3.
Yikes. And then I'm going to go ahead and say Darlington Nagbe was on the pitch long enough to deserve a match rating.
As was Tito.
What do you think after Darlington Nagbe came
I think
on?
the game somewhat needed his infusion
Absolutely.
of just control.
He has to start in the second leg.
Please, if he's physically fit. That was my biggest concern with Nagbe not training was, can he give you more than 30 minutes?
You can see why this team very much needs him, and he does not need to get traded because without him,
Absolutely.
that midfield does not move the ball.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. And like we said earlier, it's a ton of defensive players. If you don't have, a Darlington Nagbe who can play a center mid box-to-box style player for you, you really have a disconnect between your front 3, which is deadly, and the back players, because there's just no creative 10 player when you have PT out wide and Barco out wide and Joseph waiting for service that doesn't come. So I think Nagbe came in and played well. He was probably the best player that we had in the time that he played. So for the short appearance that he had, I'd give him a 7.
7. Wow. I mean, I'd probably just give him a 6 because he didn't really do too much, but I get it. He definitely was the best player.
He got fouled.
He got
drew
fouled,
fouls.
and the team, I thought, played better once he came on. And then finally, we'll go with Tito Vijal, but he was on for about 15 or so
Hit the
minutes.
post.
Hit the post. What do you give him? Quick one for him.
I mean, obviously you give him a 5 because he couldn't go yet, one way or the other, but you start the game with a 5, so maybe a 6. Had he scored all, that would have been so sweet. But Tito gives you that infusion when he hops onto the pitch and he's running him. He gives you that 15 minutes of just balls to the wall. And tonight it didn't net a goal, but thumbs up, good on you, Tito.
All right, so guys, here are those match ratings one more time for the whole team for Atlanta United in that 3-1 loss to Herediano. Hopefully we can improve upon those in the second leg next week.
All right, guys, so as we've mentioned on all of our social media networks, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, I'm giving away an extra ticket of mine to the second leg match against Herediano on 2/28 at Kennesaw's Fifth Third Bank Stadium. Now, as you know, you had to like, share, comment, subscribe, tag your friends, follow me, follow the channel on Twitter.
Wow, this is like a
a lot of
scavenger
things,
hunt.
man. We're trying to make it happen. Basically, we feel like we're bringing you great content, so we want you to join and be a part of what we're doing here. But we will be choosing the winner on Tuesday, 2/26 at 10 a.m. So be sure to tune in, and I'll be getting in touch with you on how you can get that ticket and join me at the match against Herediano.
Have fun.
Woo! Beers on you.
So that's going to do it for this match review, guys. Yeah, it was not a good night for the Five Stripes. But guys, I've been Tanner. This is Devin.
He's always been Tanner.
I've always been Tanner, and I will always be Tanner, and that match will always be hopefully banned from my memory forever. But guys, please like, subscribe, share this video because it really helps us out so much. We'll catch you guys in the next one.
Leave a comment below. We'll see you next week because we're getting this win. We're in the corridor of uncertainty.
The archipelago of anguish.
The peninsula of persecution.
Canyon of consternation.
This is ridiculous.
Seriously, that Yahoo guy was terrible.